Person, my friend, my brother, Greg Meek, for those kind words of introduction. I'm happy to see each and every one of you here this afternoon. You know, I grew up in rural Alabama, 50 miles from Montgomery. I heard of Rosa Parks when I was 15 years old. Heard of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I met Rosa Parks at the age of 17. The next year, I met Martin Luther King Jr. I got involved in the American Civil Rights Movement. Went to jail a few times, 40 times. Wow. I saw those signs that said white men, colored men, white women, colored women, white waiting, colored waiting. I asked my mother, asked my father, my grandparents, why? They would say that's the way it is. Don't get in the way, don't get in trouble. But Dr. King and others inspired me to get in trouble. I got in good trouble, necessary trouble. I tell you, when I was growing up, my mother and father and grandparents and great-grandparents couldn't register to vote. Simply because of the color of their skin. We changed that. And some of you are old enough to remember that I gave a little blood on that bridge in Selma, Alabama for the right to vote. We've come a distance. We made a lot of progress. They're forced to trying to take us back. We don't want to go back. We want to go forward. So I tell you, we need Hillary Clinton in the White House now more than ever before.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm asking each, every one of you to go to the polls on Tuesday and vote like you never voted before. Send a message to America. Send a message to the world. Now I must tell you, it is my responsibility, my honor, my pleasure to present to you, not to introduce, but to present to you the husband.
That's right.
The husband of the next president of the United States.
Still has some good moves.
Yes.
He's still shaking.
Pale face.
Well, hello, Queens.
Yeah.
Glad to be here in Northdale Village
Again.
with your Congressman Greg Meeks, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, a native of Queens, and a great friend to Hillary and me, and one of the greatest heroes of the Civil Rights Movement, Congressman John Lewis, who has been our friend for more than 30 years and who has crossed this country,
That's right.
bravely arguing day in and day out about why his friend Hillary should be the next president. I want to thank Senator Leroy Comrie, Councilman Roy Lanceman, Councilman Donovan Richards, Danique Miller, and my longtime friends, Assemblywoman Vivian Cook and Assemblywoman Alicia Hyndman. I have very little to add to the great speeches that have already been given, except I know the candidate better than everybody else.
That's right.
And except for President Obama, I know the job better than anybody else. And I think who wins depends in part on what people really think is going on here.
Amen.
Look, I understand why there's so much anxiety and worry and a lot of the tension that you've seen in both the primaries of the Republicans and the Democrats, because 80% of our people have not had a raise since the crash.
Yeah.
Because Half the American people, after you make adjustment for inflation, are making about what they did the last day I was president. That's 15 years ago. That's too long to wait.
Nope.
Because so many young people are afraid their college degree won't give them a good job, or if they do, they won't ever be able to afford to pay off the debt. I get it. But I believe the president has done a much better job than many people give him credit for. So here's what you and every American has to decide. In 400 years of economic history, not a single solitary nation has ever fully recovered from the kind of whipping we took in the day of that crash 8 years ago. No nation has fully recovered in less than 10 years. Now, we got the jobs back in 7.5. And if we hadn't had all that gridlock in Washington, I think we would be fully recovered by now.
Yeah.
So you got to decide whether you agree with Hillary and with me based on a lifetime of working to give people a chance to make a living, a better living, to go forward, to grow. I think we are just as close to being able to all rise together again as we did when I had the honor to serve. The President said in the State of the Union, we've got the most new jobs that we've had since the 1990s, 14 million jobs in 5 years. We have the strongest big economy in the world. For the first time in the history of the United States of America, more than 90% of us have health insurance. It never happened before. We have the strongest science and technology base in the world. We have the strongest, most diverse, youngest workforce in the world of any big country. Of all urban areas on the face of the earth, with more than 2 million people, Queens is the most diversified urban area on the face of the earth. We have the greatest ability to generate energy from the sun and the wind. Hillary said, we're going to put 500 million, that's a $500 million solar panels in the next 4 years, create millions of American jobs and drive down our power costs and increase our control over the future, reduce the chance that big parts of New York City will be flooded by global warming, and help lead the world away from this. And whenever I give this speech, I look out into the crowd and I see people thinking, you know, old Bill Clinton, he's really losing it in his old age. He's talking about 500 million solar panels. He thinks he's in California, not New York. Well, it's true. California ranks first in the country in deployed solar panels. But you know who's second? New Jersey. New Jersey. Why? Yeah, but don't move, because they had a governor and a legislature at one time that realized if they incentivized that, we could be powerful with solar energy and liberating homes and homeowners all over America. New York can do it too.
Right.
Texas, the oil capital of America, has more than a third of its electricity coming from the wind. So does Iowa, and they have the lowest power cost in the country. You want to bring America back? Build a modern infrastructure. Know that Flint, Michigan is not the only place where babies have elevated lead levels in their blood because of dirty pipes, and take them all up. In every state of the country, put new ones down, give all our children a healthy future, and create all those jobs. That's Hillary's plan. The energy. Loan money to small business again. Bring manufacturing jobs home again. I was in the Bronx the other day looking at manufacturing jobs coming back to America. She says we ought to give big tax breaks to people who go to places with higher unemployment, lower incomes, to put those jobs up, take them away from people moving away, and give them to people coming home to put our people to work. And she also has been forthright from the beginning in saying, anybody that tells you that we can all rise together again without taking down barriers that disproportionately affect certain groups is not shooting you straight.
Right.
We need prison reform.
Right.
We need to let all these young people who are convicted of nonviolent offenses and have been in prison too long out of prison. And they need to get the education, training, and job placement they need. And nobody should make them check a box that they were been incarcerated so they don't hire them. We need to start again.
That's right.
We need to begin again together. And in New York, I'll give you, if you have an argument with anybody, I'll give you a little fact. Because New York has among the best prison education programs in America. And a lot of them are run by Bard College. So they trained in one of our state prisons a debate team. Last month, it defeated the Harvard debate team. The month before that, it defeated the West Point debate team. What are these smart young people doing, wasting their lives in prison? If they're nonviolent offenders, let them out, give them the education, give them the training, so we can all rise together. That's her plan.
That's right.
We've got this huge prescription drug and heroin addiction problem in America. It's cutting the heart through rural America as well as urban America. We can get Democrats and Republicans together to say this is not a crime problem, this is a public health problem. We need more mental health and treatment. But we also need to treat it like an economic problem and give people something to do so they got something to look forward to when they get up in the morning. Target incentives to these areas that are troubled. So you just don't say, don't do this, don't do the other thing. You can say, look here, you can do this, you can do that. Think of what we can do together. We got to tear down these barriers.
That's
We got to
right.
make college affordable for everybody. Everybody should be able to graduate from college debt-free. And her
That's
plan
right.
to do that. Everybody that's got a debt should be able to pay it off, Hillary believes, at no more than 10% of their after-tax income, no matter how much they owe, and they ought to be able to have the rest forgiven if it's not paid off in 20 years. And right now, if you let every college student and college graduate in America refinance their debt, it would save the average student, at 25 million people, more than $2,000 apiece. If you allowed them to do what she wants, which is you do 2 years in AmeriCorps or another community service program, we'll give you $24,000 taxed free, and you can pay your debt off and go on with your life.
Right.
What that will do. All these young people can move out of their parents' home.
All right.
All these young people that have jobs they took just to pay debts, that they'd love to have this job over here, but it pays a little less, you can take that job because your debt payment will go down. Any young person that longed to start a new business, organic bakery, let's say in Queens, you can start it with $50,000, $60,000. But you can't get the loan now because you owe less college debt. If you turn it into a mortgage and you limit it to 10% of your payment, then they can loan you the money, because if you don't make any money your first year in business, you won't owe anything on the debt. Think about what this would do. This would liberate the energies of millions and millions and millions of people so we can all rise together. Now, a lot of young people don't think that's possible. That's because they don't remember that in the 1990s, when we were rising together, middle class incomes rose 70% more than they did under the trickle-down economics policies before I became president.
Yeah.
Working class income more than twice as much. And one of the things our opponents on the right and the left can't deal with is that 100 times as many people worked their way from poverty into the middle class and were liberated to all rise together. And African American family incomes led the way with a 33% increase, followed by Hispanic family income. And guess what? Nobody else was mad because we were all rising together. You just got to believe that we can do that again. That's what this election's about. Rising together by creating jobs, starting business, tearing down barriers. It's also important that we have a president who can keep us as safe as possible and try to stop all these terrible things that are happening around the world from messing up the world enough that it takes our recovery down. And it's important to have a president who understands that we cannot win the fight for the hearts and minds of people who would like to hurt us and hurt people we care about without making a world with more partners and fewer enemies. Therefore, it is crazy to demonize our fellow citizens who are Muslims, who love this country, believe in freedom, hate terror, and want to build an America where we can all live together. And the final thing, we need a Supreme Court that will be different from the one that voted for Citizens United and hung us for sale sign on American democracy. Different from the one who voted to restrict voting rights and allow states to run wild in their efforts to make it harder for minorities, for disabled people, for the frail elderly, and for young people to vote. We need a Supreme Court committed to expanding voting, not restricting it. We need a Supreme Court that won't do what happened last week because there's now a vacancy. They voted 4-4 on a case that if it had been 5-4, it would have ruined the public employment movement in the United States of America. We cannot let that happen. You need a president who will give you a Supreme Court that believes this country belongs to all the people. If we're going to rise together, we got to live together, we got to be citizens together. But voting rights don't absolve you of voting responsibilities. Here's the most interesting thing about the New York primary. It is the only big state in America where there is a standalone presidential primary. So 8 years ago when the president and Hillary ran this tough campaign here, there was a lot of interest. She carried New York in a record turnout. They also had a presidential primary in Illinois, his home state, and he beat her there, as he should have. Here's the problem. New York has 50% more people living in it than Illinois. Illinois voted 50% more votes than we did, even though we had a record turnout. Why? Because we don't elect members of Congress, state assembly people, city council people. It's just the president's race. So in many ways, the primary in New York could be as important as the general election vote. And on this day, with all these young people back there here for Hillary, there's a lot of people that'll talk and help you if you need any kind of support at all. But if you want the fights, the voting rights to continue, Tuesday, you have to embody voting responsibilities. And we've got to do this together. I believe I spent my whole life, 12 years as a governor, 8 years as president, 15 years working in America and around the world, trying to empower people to make a living, get a good education, have decent health care, fight off the worst ravages of climate change so we can all rise together. I believe we're just this close. And the most important reason to vote for Hillary is not just that I think she got better ideas and would be a better leader for our national security reasons. She's the best change maker I've ever known.
Yeah.
You saw John Lewis up here.
Yeah.
There is a reason that she got 73% of the vote in South Carolina and 78% in Alabama and 81% in Mississippi.
All right.
A reason. Because they know that when she got out of law school, she could have written her ticket and gone to work for some big law firm, and instead, she went to South Carolina for the Children's Defense Fund to report on why African American teenage kids, then 13, 14 years old, were being kept in prison with adults. They filed a report and it changed the whole juvenile justice system down there. She always finds a way to do something to make it better. There is a reason that they voted for her in those numbers in Alabama, because when it took a lot of guts to do it in 1973, she went down there to expose illegal, continuing segregated schools, parading as private academies, taking your tax breaks if you're old enough to have paid taxes then. She sauntered in that school like she didn't have a care in the world, said she just moved to town, she had a child she wanted to enroll. They made small talk and the school said, just tell me yes or no. She said, if my boy goes to school here, will he be in an all-white school? And the guy thought, oh, he's got to do tuition pay. He said, absolutely. She had him. They closed that school. They lost their tax credit. Schools like that all over Alabama, then all over the South, lost their tax credit. She always makes something good happen.
Right.
And I was out in Hempstead before I came here. When Hillary ran for re-election as senator from New York, the head of the Farm Bureau on Long Island endorsed her, a lifetime Republican. They have all those little family farms out there, you know. You've probably seen them if you've been driving in the summertime there. So the press says, aren't you a Republican? He said, I thought I was. I said, well, how can you endorse her? And the guy said, look, all these politicians sound great at election time, but I've been trying to help these family farmers a long time. And here's what I know. She's the only person in either party we ever sent to Washington who actually did something to help the family farmers. I'm for her. She did that for a lot of people. All over upstate New York, the western New York, did things like she did for New York City and the first and second responders after 9/11. So that's my pitch, folks. You know, and facts are stubborn things. Just one time in the last 50 years have we all risen together. Just one time, maybe in the history of the country, has African American family income led all other ethnic groups in family income increases. Just one time did we reach a 46-year low in deaths by illegal gun homicides because we passed a background check law. Look, she and her opponent agree on 93% of the things, but I think she was right in the other 7. We had a chance to enact comprehensive immigration reform in 2007. He's the only one who voted yes. And I could give you lots of examples, but I understand why everybody's mad. I think you need a change maker. John Lewis has spent a lifetime making change. That's why he came here. Sheila Jackson Lee, a Queens native, is one of the most effective members of Congress in Houston. Greg Meeks understands what happens in America and what happens abroad and how they relate to each other. One senator who served with them both, who willingly gave up his seat so a lot of people in this audience could have health care. He knew he was going to get beat if he voted for health care. And he does get his feelings hurt when he hears that he's a part of the establishment because he supports Hillary. Because he understands that it's hard to do. But this guy said he gave the best 4-sentence endorsement that I ever heard. And I've loved this young man all his life. I knew him when he was a boy. He said, I voted for health care and I knew I would lose if I did, but I had cancer as a child and I survived it and lived to marry and have children because I had health insurance. Because my father was a governor and a senator and he gave me health care and I lived. I could not live with myself if I kept my Senate seat by taking a dive when the going got tough. And so I gave it up. He said, here's what I want to say to you. 1, I know both these people. 2, I like them both. 3, I have served with them both. And 4, if you really want to get something done, you had better make Hillary president. That's my case. Thank you.